My fiance is such a painfully proper man, it's almost boring. Ethan Whitmore, a young finance professor at Windermere University, spends his days thinking about only three things: what to eat with steamed vegetables, whether to sleep on his side or his back, and how to break off our engagement without getting scolded by his father. We've been betrothed since we were kids, thanks to an agreement between our grandfathers back when our families were still close business partners. I was 8, and Ethan was a pale little boy with a red bow tie, hugging a book bigger than his face, both shy and arrogant at once. I once punched him right in the middle of a birthday party for calling me as noisy as a bunch of ducks. Who would have thought that more than 10 years later, he'd become my fiancé? I returned home for Lunar New Year, and that's exactly when I found out that the man who always claimed, "I don't like anyone," was on the balcony talking to a beautiful girl on video call. The warm golden light illuminated his face. He stood straight, with a calm demeanor, neatly parted black hair, and his features sculpted like marble. Under that light, he looked like a noble wax figure displayed in an art exhibit. Unreasonably handsome. In the video, the girl on the other end was crying. Ethan tilted his head slightly, his voice low and gentle in a way I'd never heard. "Don't be scared. Take your time. I'll help you figure it out." I had stepped onto the balcony at some point without realizing it. When he turned around and saw me watching, his eyes faltered, his face tensed. "Chloe, how long have you been standing there?" I shrugged, answering flatly. "Your dad told me to check if you were home yet. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. That girl in the video, is she someone you like?" Ethan frowned. "She's just a colleague." I didn't ask any more questions, just nodded slightly. But inside, I knew the way he looked at that phone screen was anything but ordinary. After dinner that night, I had a little wine. As I was walking through the hallway, about to return to my room, I saw Ethan still standing there, staring into space. I walked closer, stood in front of him, and tilted my head as I asked straight out, "Is it because of that girl earlier?" Ethan was startled, then shook his head. "It has nothing to do with anyone. I've been meaning to talk to you. Chloe, I don't like you. I don't want to marry you. Let's call off the engagement." He said it with a serious voice, each word as sharp as a knife. I looked up at him. His eyes were firm, lips tightly pressed as if bracing for the consequences. I said nothing, just looked at him. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Ethan started getting nervous. His hands clenched slightly, the base of his neck turned red, and his eyes shifted away. Finally, I softly said 3 words. "No can do." He froze. I repeated, this time more clearly. "No can do. Ethan, I'm not calling off the engagement. I want to marry you." He began to genuinely panic. His usually composed face turned frantic, and his voice turned sharp. "Why? Why can't you? Don't tell me you like me." I blinked. "What, I can't marry you unless I like you? How is that a contradiction?" Ethan was at a loss for words. His expression at that moment looked exactly like a puppy that had just been splashed with cold water, frustrated, indignant, but unable to argue back. He was so upset his voice trembled. "Chloe, are you joking about marriage? How do you expect to live a lifetime without love? Aren't you afraid I'll cheat on you? That I won't give you money or affection or romance? I hate you. Aren't you afraid of any of that?" I watched his thin lips rambling on with warnings and thought to myself, what a pity for such lips to be used just for nagging. I tilted my head and asked gently, "Professor Whitmore, come here so I can have a taste." Ethan froze mid-sentence. "What?" I didn't wait. My hand grabbed his tie and gently pulled it down. His body tilted slightly, his eyes wide with disbelief, like he couldn't believe what was happening. I leaned in and softly touched my lips to his. At first, he didn't react, completely frozen, then instinctively parted his lips to protest. But I didn't give him the chance. I pulled away quickly. It was just a light kiss, enough to make his heart skip a beat. His ears turned bright red. His usually pale face is now clearly flushed. He stood stiffly for a few seconds, then snapped out of it, hurriedly stepping back, rubbing his mouth so hard it turned red, his eyes filled with both anger and disbelief. "Chloe, you just..." I blinked and looked at his lips. They're swollen. That was from my kiss. Ethan was completely stiff. His expression was one of total shock. At that moment, he looked just like a kitten forced to wear a tutu in front of guests, furious and helpless. I tilted my head, letting out a soft sigh. "You're pretty sweet too, Professor." Ethan didn't say another word. Eyes red, chest heaving, he turned and ran out of the hallway like he'd just escaped a mental ambush. I watched his retreating figure and softly said loud enough for him to hear, "Every time you mention breaking off the engagement, I'll kiss you once. I'll kiss you until you're too afraid to open your mouth again." I always do what I say. Don't believe me? Just try me. His steps faltered. Then he immediately ran even faster, as if terrified I'd kiss him breathless if he didn't flee in time. The engagement between Ethan Whitmore and me didn't come from love. It was an arrangement made by the generation before us. My grandfather had been a business partner with the Whitmores for many years, and both families treated each other like blood relatives. When I was 8, they made a promise that one day, Ethan and I would get married and carry on the relationship between our two families. I had only met Ethan once that year. Back then, he was a pale boy with neatly combed hair, wearing a red bow tie, tightly clutching a finance book that was bigger than his face. He didn't look like a kid at all, more like a miniature old man. I found it so amusing, I teased him a little, called him a fermented bun, and casually punched him. Who would have thought that punch would start a destiny that's lasted until now? Ethan probably doesn't remember any of that. He's the type who lives by logic, never letting emotions interfere with any decision. But I haven't forgotten. Not because of the punch, but because of another memory. I remember very clearly, during that summer party, Ethan was bullied by a few neighborhood kids. They snatched his book and pushed him down into the garden. While the adults hadn't even reacted yet, I was the first to run over and stand in front of him. I didn't know why I did it, but maybe, from that moment on, I felt the need to protect this strange little bookworm. Then now, I look at my face in the mirror, examining each feature. Nothing stands out. Slightly brown eyes, messy hair, skin that's neither porcelain nor sun-kissed. A normal face not beautiful enough to make people turn their heads, but cute enough not to be forgotten. I chuckled to myself. Compared to Ethan, I have nothing that could be called a match. He has everything: looks, education, career, and even reputation. Me? I'm just Chloe Sinclair, an ordinary girl with a heart that refuses to accept rejection. I remember what my brother once told me, one winter night when his illness got worse. His voice was weak, but his eyes were still bright. "Chloe, if you marry into the Whitmore family, even if I pass away, I'll be at peace. No one will dare to bully you. My illness has gotten serious. My last wish is just to see you marry Ethan." I stayed silent, holding his hand tightly. I didn't answer, but in my heart, I had already made a promise. I know very well that Ethan doesn't love me. He might even find me annoying. But I'm not the type to give up easily, especially not when, deep down, I already have a clear answer. I want to marry him. Not because I'm being forced, not because of some promise from the past, but because I truly want to stay by his side. The next morning, I went downstairs as usual and saw Ethan sitting at the breakfast table. He wore a black shirt, black tie, and had a face so stern it could make any stranger back away. He was still upset about last night. I pulled out a chair, poured some tea, and smiled at him like nothing had happened. As he stood up and walked past me, I leaned in and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "What's with all the black today? Black pants, black shirt, even your face is black. Did losing your first kiss to me turn you all gloomy?" Ethan froze, eyes slightly wide, lips pressed tight, his jaw locked, and as usual, his ears began turning red. He tilted his head and looked at me, his eyes full of caution. "Chloe, no matter what you do, I won't give in. I will cancel this engagement. I'd rather die than marry you." I rose on my toes and leaned in, my voice light as a breeze. "Ethan, you still haven't learned how to dodge a kiss properly, have you?" Hearing that, Ethan immediately covered his mouth with his hand, eyes on high alert, body tense as if preparing for an ambush. I looked him up and down and chuckled. "You think I'm going to kiss you again?" Ethan dropped his gaze and didn't answer, but his ears had already turned tomato red. I silently reached out, took his hand, and gently kissed the back of it. Ethan jumped, his hand frozen in midair. His eyes looked at me dazedly, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. In that moment, he looked like a puppy forced to wear a pink bow in front of guests. I looked up, my eyes sparkling like a lake. "If you won't marry me, then I'll kiss you. I'll kiss you every day. I'll kiss you until you're too scared to ask for a breakup again. I mean what I say. Don't believe me? Try it." Ethan took a step back. His eyes were panicked, and this time he truly ran. Without a word, leaving behind a soft gust of wind and the hurried echo of footsteps through the Grand Whitmore hallway. I watched his back as he fled, my lips curling into a smile. All right then, Ethan, this war has only just begun. After Ethan ran out of the hallway like a man being chased by a kiss, I calmly walked back to my room thinking as I went, how much longer could he keep dodging me? Every time he mentioned breaking off the engagement, his face turned red, and he bolted like I was demanding repayment. Adorable to the point I couldn't resist teasing him again and again. The next morning, as usual, exactly at 4 in the afternoon, Ethan would walk out of his room to drink a glass of iced water. I had noticed he did it every day, not a minute early, not a second late. His whole being seemed pre-programmed. I quietly stepped in front of his door, pressing my ear against it. Silence. Absolute silence. I knew he was still inside. I turned to the large mirror hanging on the wall, fixed my hair, and straightened my dress. In the reflection stood a girl in a cream spaghetti strap dress, her hair tied in a high ponytail, her face gently made up in a barely there style. The more I looked, the more I saw someone both cute and dangerous. I narrowed my eyes, reapplied my lipstick, and puckered my lips in a mock kiss toward the mirror. Somehow I had the odd feeling someone was watching me from behind. I turned around. No one was there. The hallway was empty, but that gaze and that feeling still lingered. Just then, the door opened and Ethan appeared, still wearing that cold expression. His white dress shirt was replaced by an oversized gray t-shirt. Framed glasses, fringe falling slightly over his forehead. He looked a bit softer than usual, but I could still see his familiar rigidity. I shrugged and smiled, squinting playfully. Ethan, what do you think of this dress? He didn't answer right away, just glanced at me for a second, then looked away. His response was curt and dry. Normal? I was about to laugh when I noticed 2 faint red lines running from his nose. I gasped, Ethan, your nose is bleeding. He froze, eyes startled, then quickly cleared his throat. Must be the heat, today's weather is stuffy. I handed him a tissue gently, asking, where does it feel hot? Do you need medicine? As I spoke, my hand brushed across his nose and lips trying to wipe away the blood. Ethan lowered his head slightly, eyes downcast. This time, I couldn't hold back a laugh. Poor puppy. A few minutes later, when the bleeding stopped, Ethan stood quietly in a corner, face still red as an apple. I sat down across from him, chin resting on my palm, looking at him with an oddly serious gaze. Ethan, do you not want to marry me? He looked up this time, not avoiding. My amber-eyed gaze met his steady and determined, yes, Chloe. I don't want to. I hate being tied down, especially in marriage. You and I don't match. Being together would only tire us out. I can't promise I won't cheat. Can't promise I won't hurt you. If you marry me, you'll regret it. I watched him without interrupting. I knew he meant every word, but in his eyes, I didn't see indifference. I saw fear. I smiled softly, placing my hand on the table. Then here's the deal. Give me 10 days. Ethan paused slightly. 10 days, I nodded. 10 days of truly being together. If after that you still don't want to marry me, I'll be the one to tell your father. I'll be the one to break off the engagement. He frowned, stayed silent for a few seconds, then answered in a calm tone, no need for 10 days, 100 days, 1,000 days. I won't change my mind. I smiled lightly, unwavering, but 10 days is my offer, and you've already agreed. Ethan was about to argue, but I had already stood up waving goodbye. My friend's picking me up. I'm going to visit my brother in the hospital. See you later, Professor. I turned to leave without looking back. Ethan stood rooted, watching me go like a small dog, unsure if he should call out. Just as I stepped out the door, he suddenly called Chloe. Wait, I turned surprised. What is it? Ethan turned away, his voice much softer. It's cold out. Wearing that you'll catch a cold. I frowned, thinking, didn't he just say it was hot? Ethan froze, face flushed bright red. A few seconds later, he rushed off down the stairs like he'd just been caught doing something shameful. I watched him go, smiling to myself. The 10-day battle officially began. Taking advantage of the trial period that Ethan reluctantly accepted, I decided to start with a strategic emotional ambush. That morning, I deliberately chose a more modest dress, paired with a cardigan and flats, completing the perfect girl next door look. With a natural air as if I were a student at Winmere University, I walked straight to the lecture hall where Ethan was teaching. I had planned everything in detail, including where I would sit, choosing a seat closest to the podium to not miss a single reaction from him. As soon as I sat down, two girls nearby started whispering excitedly. One said softly, "Professor Whitmore is just too handsome. Every time he lectures, I can't concentrate on anything." The other girl giggled, eyes twinkling the ideal boyfriend type. And rumor has it he only likes gentle intellectual women like Sophie Palmer from the education department. They've even been spotted together. Hearing this, I almost laughed. So the students were still trying to ship Ethan with someone else. No matter, I had come today precisely to sink that ship. On the podium, Ethan kept his usual stern face. He stood straight eyes, sweeping across the class, flipping textbook pages like he was performing a dignified, polite play. Every word he said was proper, slow, and deliberate. But I knew behind that gray sweater and warm voice was a man who blushed at a single glance. I pulled out my phone, opened WhatsApp, and typed a simple, straightforward message to him. Just one sentence. "Professor Whitmore, when you finish your lecture, would you like to meet me at the stairwell?" The moment he saw the message, Ethan hesitated for a brief second. He tried to stay calm, continued lecturing as if nothing happened, but I could see the hand holding his pen trembled slightly and his eyes began to avoid the area where I sat. A few seconds later, a reply popped up. 2 words. "What for?" I smiled and typed quickly, without thinking. "Nothing special. I just want to kiss you a little." 2 seconds after I sent the message, a noise erupted in the classroom. The whole lecture hall fell silent. All eyes turned to Ethan. He had accidentally dropped his phone on the table. His face turned beet red like a ripe chili. His ears so hot they seemed to steam. A few strands of hair on his forehead trembled slightly from the inner chaos. He lowered his head, not daring to look around, pretending to flip pages though his hand was shaking. I rested my chin on my hand, watching him wide-eyed. The scene was so adorable, I wanted to wrap it up as a gift. After a few minutes of gathering his remaining composure, Ethan bent down, picked up his phone, and hurriedly typed a response like he was hiding a crime. "Chloe, are you insane? I'm not going." "How could you say something like that so casually? Don't you feel ashamed?" "I'm not going." I smirked and didn't reply. Instead, I stood up and walked straight out of the classroom. Passing by the podium, I deliberately kept my posture composed, walking slowly with pride, not even glancing at Ethan. He stared at me in a daze, clutching his phone like he was battling a storm of emotions inside. His eyes wavered visibly. I knew I had planted a very specific insecurity in his heart, and just as I predicted, the moment I sat down on the steps outside the lecture hall, barely taking a sip of water, I heard familiar footsteps behind me. I turned and saw Ethan walking toward me. He kept his head low, hair falling over his forehead, but I could still see his fingers clenching the hem of his shirt. As he got closer, I smiled softly and asked directly, "Ethan, you came because I called, didn't you?" He immediately denied it, his voice as soft as a kitten. No, I didn't let him speak further. I leaned over and kissed him lightly at the corner of his lips. "Good boy, that's your reward." His long lashes trembled, his eyes wide in disbelief, but he didn't pull away. I gently nudged his shoulder to sit down beside me. My hand touched his cheek. Our eyes locked, his breath growing uneven. His eyes were as dewy as an autumn lake filled with unfamiliar emotions. Ethan looked at me, hesitated, and whispered like confessing a secret. "Chloe, you call me a puppy because I obey you, don't you?" I didn't answer, just pinched his ear and grinned wickedly. "Then prove it. The better you behave, the more rewards you get." Ethan's face turned red, hands on his knees, eyes darting to the ground. A few seconds later, he leaned in close to my ear and whispered as softly as possible. "Woof, woof, woof," I froze, turned to him as if I couldn't believe my ears. 1 second later, I burst out laughing so hard, tears welled up in my eyes. Ethan, after saying that, looked so flustered he nearly bolted. But I stayed seated, and he quietly sat beside me, fingers fiddling with the edge of his shirt, face burning bright red. Under the gentle afternoon sun, I knew one thing for sure. No matter how stubborn he pretended to be, his heart sooner or later would be mine. I used to think that if I was persistent enough, shameless enough, thick-skinned enough, then that cold as stone professor would eventually soften. But I didn't expect that I would be the one to tire out first. Sometimes in love, the one who puts in more effort doesn't always win. Sometimes just a single sentence can turn the most confident person into someone with nothing left to say. That afternoon, Ethan and I attended a small gathering at the Whitmore residence. The festive atmosphere had everyone laughing and chatting joyfully. When I stepped into the living room, I saw Ethan sitting among his relatives looking refined, calm, and elegant, like he was born to be nobility. Next to him sat Sophie Palmer, the teacher who people often said was perfect for him. I didn't mind, but when our eyes accidentally met, I saw Ethan flinch. As if caught red-handed, he quickly turned away, lowering his head so much his ears turned red. I was about to walk away to clear my mind when a voice called out behind me. It was an old friend from middle school named Marcus Tang. He recognized me, rushed over, excitedly grabbed my hand, and started going on about how we used to sit next to each other and how it's been over 10 years, and invited me to karaoke with the old crew. I hadn't even replied when a hand suddenly reached out and tightly gripped my wrist. Marcus and I froze, turning to see Ethan wearing his usual gentle expression, but with eyes cold as a December wind. His voice was calm and deliberate. "Didn't you hear my fiancée say she didn't want to go?" I was stunned. I thought I'd misheard. But no, Ethan had just called me my fiancée right in front of everyone, both familiar and unfamiliar. I didn't have time to react before he tightened his grip and pulled me straight outside. It wasn't until we were alone that I could finally collect myself and look up at him confused. "Why did you say that in front of everyone?" Ethan looked visibly flustered. He turned his face away, faked a cough, and muttered, "Because I didn't want that guy to take you away." I didn't say anything. At that moment, I felt something strange inside, a mix of surprise, happiness, and something I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was a flicker of hope. That night, after saying goodbye to my friend at a cafe, I was walking home when I suddenly realized Ethan was following behind me. He didn't say why, just silently shadowed me like a ghost. I turned back and snapped lightly. "Ethan, are you trying to scare me by following me like that?" He scratched his head awkwardly, then suddenly blurted out a long rant. "Your blind date guy was terrible. Not tall, not handsome, stingy too. He talked to you for so long and didn't even order a drink. If you date someone like that, you'll suffer your whole life." I shot him a glance and replied coldly, "Oh, so who do you think isn't stingy, isn't ordinary, and has a good figure?" Ethan almost blurted something, but then seemed to realize something, stopped abruptly and awkwardly shook his head. "No, that's not what I meant." I shrugged, pretending not to care, and turned away. A moment later, I suddenly remembered I left my wallet at the cafe and rushed back. Ethan was still there watching me. When I hurried past him, he suddenly reached out, blocked my path, and grabbed my wrist. "Chloe." "Wait," I frowned. "Let go. I forgot my wallet." Ethan bit his lip, his face tense. His voice choked, but each word was clear. "Chloe, I don't want you kissing me and then going to kiss someone else. I don't want the hand that touched my face to end up on someone else. I like the way you smell. I like how you tease me. I like how you call me puppy." I always pretended not to, but I do. I like it a lot. I stood frozen, not believing what I was hearing. Ethan, the one who'd claimed to hate me, who had tried to break off the engagement countless times, was now saying he liked me, but somehow I couldn't feel happy. The feeling came too late. I pulled my hand away, my eyes calm, though my heart had already shut down. "Ethan, you don't have to say anything more. From the beginning, I only talked about marriage. I never mentioned love. You were the one who proposed an open engagement, who set clear terms, no feelings, no obligations. And now you blame me for not loving you." Ethan stammered, "No, I'm not blaming you." I just gently interrupted. "It's all right. I get it now. Don't worry. I won't kiss you again." His eyes lifted toward me, a thin layer of water shimmering. I smiled, tilted my head, and continued. "Tomorrow, I'll talk to your father and my brother. We're ending this. No need to wait 10 days. I don't think you'd fall for me in 10 days or even 10 years. Ethan clenched his fists, eyes panicking. "Chloe, wait!" But I had already turned around, not looking back, not giving him a chance to follow. For the first time in our strange relationship, I was the one to let go first. I left the Whitmore mansion like a cold wind at winter's end. No tears, no shouting, no glances back. Just walking away calmly as if I had never loved. Hoped never let my heart fall for someone I thought was untouchable. Ethan didn't chase after me, or maybe he did, but I didn't bother to turn around to find out. The next morning, I returned to my place, a small apartment in downtown Windermere that I'd rented before the whole engagement drama started. As I opened the door, everything around me suddenly felt too quiet. No one making tea at 7 sharp, no soft footsteps along the hallway. No one sighing after I teased them too much. I tossed my bag onto the sofa and turned on my phone. 3 missed calls from Ethan, 1 retracted message. No apology, no explanation. I powered it off. 3 days later, my mother unexpectedly sent me a matchmaking invitation. This time, a young doctor from a respectable family. She said he looked nice in the photo. I wasn't interested, but for some reason, I said yes. Maybe I just wanted a proper excuse to cut off everything related to the name Whitmore. That evening, I wore an elegant white dress, tied my hair in a low bun, and applied light makeup. When I arrived at the restaurant and had just sat down for less than 10 minutes, I felt someone staring at me. I looked toward the corner of the room and almost spat out my tea. Ethan. He was wearing a long black coat, a mask, a baseball cap, sitting behind a giant menu, looking like an amateur spy from a comedy movie. I pretended not to see him and continued my conversation with the date, but every sentence was interrupted by overly dramatic coughing from the next table. I tilted my head and glanced over Ethan. He quickly ducked his face, pretending to read the menu. The man in front of me frowned and asked, "Are you all right? That man seems to be watching you." I forced a smile and shook my head. "It's nothing, just a coincidence." When the date ended and I stepped out of the restaurant, I saw Ethan leaning against the wall, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on mine. The wind had picked up. His hair was messy. His face was as cold as if he'd just been dumped. I walked past him without a word, but Ethan suddenly spoke up. I was wrong. I stopped, turned to him, and didn't smile. Wrong about what he took, 2 steps forward, stood in front of me, his gaze more serious than I'd ever seen. I was wrong to let you go. I was wrong to think I could control everything with logic. I was wrong to suppress my feelings. I was wrong not to chase after you the moment you walked away. I still didn't say anything. I just looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Ethan took a deep breath and then whispered, "Chloe, you don't have to marry me if you don't want to. But if you can, please, don't leave me like that. I never thought I'd fall for you. But now I can't imagine a day without you. Wherever you go, I'm watching. Wherever you text, I'm waiting. Every time you kiss me, I lose sleep. When you leave, I can't eat Chloe. I like you in the dumbest, clumsiest, and most serious way possible." I still didn't respond. After a moment, I tilted my head, "So what are you going to do to prove it?" Ethan pulled out his phone, opened his public account, and right in front of me typed a bold message. "I, Ethan Whitmore, am the official fiancé of Chloe Sinclair. Touch her and I'll sue you. Make her cry and I'll punch you." I laughed out loud, but something inside me melted. He looked at me, his voice soft as the night wind. "You haven't broken off the engagement yet, have you?" I raised an eyebrow. I'm about to. Ethan immediately stepped forward, grabbing my wrist. But this time, his hand was warmer than ever. "Then give me another chance." "What chance?" "A chance for you to fall in love with me. From the beginning, not 10 days, a lifetime." I was stunned. Ethan looked at me with eyes so sincere they made my heart tremble. Still, I rejected him. From the beginning, I only mentioned marriage, not love, but Ethan didn't seem to care about my rejection at all. He just smiled, his voice still as gentle as if we were discussing philosophy. "Chloe, then, just let me be the one to love you." I frowned, stepped back a little, hands on hips, looking defensive. "If you keep saying weird things like that, I'll seriously reconsider this engagement." But Ethan only chuckled, his calm face so unbothered it made me want to kick the sofa he always sat on. "Then let's love each other for life. No need to reconsider." I glared at him, both annoyed and helpless. "Enough, I swear. If you keep being this shameless, I'll give you 100 horns and start calling you my lord, just for the full package." He looked at me, still as composed as ever. "Unless I die because of you, everyone else is just a side character." I didn't know why I hadn't kicked this man out of my life yet. For the past 2 months, Ethan had displayed every shameless skill possible. From texting, calling, to pretending to tutor me and suddenly moving into my tiny apartment. He did it all with a face full of righteous purpose. I didn't know when I had gotten used to his annoying presence. He started bringing his things over to eat and sleep with me, clinging like a burr. On the morning of my birthday, Ethan acted unusually strange. He didn't grumble about coffee, didn't mumble about emails. Instead, he walked into my room with a suspiciously bright smile. Before I could react, he gently lifted me off the bed like a lazy kitten, then hummed while helping me get dressed, put on slippers, and smoothed my messy bangs. His actions weren't stiff like usual, but suspiciously gentle, like he was hiding something. "There's a very special birthday gift waiting for you," he whispered, like he was about to trick me into selling my soul. I was still sleepy and didn't care much, but the moment I stepped out of my room, my eyes nearly popped out of my head. Ethan was standing in the living room, blushing bright red, wearing a British short hair cat cosplay headband with glittery cat ears, an oversized sweater falling off his shoulder, revealing toned abs and a belt loose enough to show off his waist. The small bell hanging from his collar jingled every time he moved. His normally handsome face was flushed with embarrassment, but he still looked straight at me. I froze, my mouth open to ask, "Where did you buy that?" But my throat was too dry to speak. Ethan walked over, knelt in front of me, gently held my hand, and placed it on his cheek. His voice was soft, like a late-night jazz song. "Chloe, do you like it?" I blinked, nodded, then immediately shook my head. "No, I don't like it." He raised an eyebrow, lips curling into a mischievous smile. "You do, I saw you. Heart that clip of the male lead in a cat outfit." I wanted to throw a pillow at him, but my heart was beating like a drum, cheering him on. Ethan rubbed his cheek against my hand, his voice so coy it made me laugh just a little. "Chloe, try liking me a little. I promise to be good." I bit my lip trying to stay calm, but my mind was spinning from the sight. Suddenly, memories of the past 2 months with him came flooding in. The times he waited outside just to hand me hot tea. The times he sat listening to me vent about work. The times he quietly made medicine when I had a cold. I sighed slowly, wrapped my arms around his neck. Ethan looked surprised, eyes wide like a kitten being petted. I whispered, "All right, I'll reluctantly give it a try." And so, on that birthday morning, I officially adopted a giant cat in an oversized sweater with fake ears and a jingly collar. But I swear it was the silliest, strangest, and most lovable gift I had ever received. Excerpt from the Diary of Ethan Whitmore. According to my father, I once met Chloe Sinclair when we were kids. Back then, I was a chubby, shy boy who struggled to talk to strangers. Chloe called me a fermented bun and gave me 2 bumps on my forehead. Even though it hurt a bit, I remember very clearly how it felt to be defended by her when a bunch of kids at the public garden teased me. She hit them for me, then patted my head like saying, "This guy belongs to me." Years later, she became my contract fiancée, Chloe Sinclair, a girl who looked gentle on the outside but was nothing like that on the inside. I never imagined I'd meet her again in such a way, and even less expected how completely she would throw my life into chaos from the moment she moved into my house. From the faint scent that lingered on her coat to the soft sound of her footsteps in the kitchen, everything about her became addictive. I even took a quiet sniff when she wasn't looking, but even then I stayed determined to break off the engagement. Because I thought she was too dazzling, while I just wanted to live a peaceful life as a mild-mannered professor. Then one day, Chloe kissed me against my will. It was a real kiss, not the romantic kind from movies, but a full-on ambush right in the middle of me. Reciting a statistical formula in the kitchen, I was shocked and lost control. And the terrifying part was, I didn't hate it. I'd never had a strong desire for intimacy and even made a conscious effort to avoid it. But after that kiss, it was like a switch inside me had been flipped. I couldn't look her in the eye the whole day, afraid my expression would give me away. I started experiencing strange symptoms. My body heated up when she wore spaghetti strap dresses or bent down to pick something up. I realized the mirror hanging outside my room was one-way glass. Originally meant for safe observation, but it had now become the source of my nosebleeds whenever she stood there blowing kisses at her reflection. From a young age, I had always been proud and terrified of anyone seeing the other side of me. But Chloe made me break all my rules. I don't know when I started liking her. Was it when she smiled brightly and waved at me across campus? Or was it when I realized that her smile matched perfectly with the memory of the little girl who once punched a bully for me? I'm not sure, but I know one thing: I want to keep her. And so I began to persist in my way slowly without pressure, just by being shameless and bumping into her shoulder every morning by coincidence. I know she has her reasons for staying away from anything to do with marriage. Her brother is seriously ill, and she's so strong that she can't admit she's scared of being alone. That day when she cried in the kitchen, I stood still for a long time before softly saying, "You dummy, have you forgotten about me? I'm never going to leave you alone." That day I decided if I couldn't make her believe me with words, then I'd have to prove it with actions. So I wrapped myself as a birthday present, slipped into a cat costume, and acted like it was the most normal thing in the world. My head was buzzing, and my legs were shaking so badly I almost tripped over the living room rug. But when Chloe smiled, I knew I had chosen the right person. I'm about to get married. Maybe it's just on paper, but my heart signed that contract a long time ago.